Hello and welcome to Expat Chat. I'm John Kolditz with Fluency Corp. If you're joining us live, please let us know in the chat where you're joining us from today. And if you're not familiar with us, we have around 200 coaches around the world to help business professionals improve conversational fluency to business proficiency in a second language so they can communicate clearly and confidently with colleagues and clients. We're happy to share expat experiences with you. And if you're joining us live, please don't hesitate to ask questions in the chat as well, and we'll try to get to those. Today, I'm joined by Sara Tyler, founder of Nomad Publishing. Give her some love in the chat, and be sure to ask any questions you'd like her to answer. Welcome, Sara.
Hi, John. Thank you so much for having me.
Great. It's great to have you. So tell us where you are at the moment. What part of the world are you in?
Okay, so I'm in Veracruz, Mexico. Actually, I have a map, so I am right here on the Gulf of Mexico. It's 95 degrees, 100% humidity, and I love it. We are just about half a mile from the beach.
Oh, awesome. Yeah. So is it beach weather all year round?
In December and January, it tends to be chilly. I mean, chilly by Mexico standards, maybe like 75. But I grew up at going to the beach in New Jersey, so I still get in the water. No one else does, just me.
So when I've done work in Dominican Republic and other ocean side communities, people didn't go to the beach.
No,
do people take advantage of it?
No, not at all. Nobody in my partner's family goes to the beach. We have to drag them kicking and screaming. It's very strange.
Wow, that's right. So you have family there in Veracruz?
My partner he has a really big family. He's one of 10.
Okay. Wow. Okay. So, hey, Jessica, thanks for checking in. Glad you're here. Hope you have some questions for us later. So tell us a little bit about your expat journey. What brought you to Mexico?
Okay, so I actually started out in Guadalajara. I was living in the United States, and I had a really good job. I was working for the NIH in maternal fetal medicine research. But I wasn't really making enough money. I was making too much money to be poor, but not enough money to really live on my own. I was kind of in that in-between area.
Okay.
And I really didn't like working at the hospital. Okay. When you work in the hospital, there's a lot of egos. There's a lot of clickiness. My department was all women, and it was a toxic environment. At the same time, I was teaching English at a local church. I was volunteering, and I absolutely love that. So I had this kind of epiphany that, you know what? Why am I enjoying something I'm doing for free instead of enjoying what I do for work? And that's when I really decided to, leave all the nursing classes behind, and I switched to English Language Learner Studies or English as a second language. Now, the reason I came to Mexico is because I'm impatient. I'm super impatient, and I could do classes online. So I said, well, why don't I go to Mexico? And by the time I graduate with my bachelor's degree, I'll already have experience teaching, and I'll be so much, further ahead than other teachers. That's really how it started.
Okay. So do you teach English in Mexico now?
No. I taught English and Spanish for over 10 years, and I stopped it during the pandemic. I started a publishing company instead.
Great. And how's so yeah, I want to talk more about your publishing company. Tell us, while we're on that subject, tell us a little bit about Nomad Publishing, what it is, who you publish, and anything else that'll be interesting.
Okay, absolutely. So I started Nomad Publishing. A lot of teachers during COVID left the profession. There was kind of this exodus of teachers from the profession.
Okay.
And so I wanted something that I could do that used all the same skills as teaching, but it was more fulfilling for me because during the pandemic, everything went online. I have a master's degree in teaching online, educational technology. For me, it was easy, but for the students and the parents, it was awful, stressful. And so when I came across the option to start a publishing company, I was like, oh, that's perfect. I'm already an author. I've already self-published. You know, I have the interest in travel, and I know that there aren't travel books because I've looked for them. All kinds of magically came together. The
Wow.
people that I help are mainly moms like me who love to travel, who want to write a book, but they don't have any idea where to start.
Okay. Great. So
that's attacking me. This is the one making all the trouble. This is my kitty cat.
Ah.
Yeah, he's attacking my feet.
And what's his name?
Mandalorian. We call him Mando. Yeah.
So, and how old is Mando?
We think he's 8 weeks. We got him off the beach. When we got him, my partner had to feed him with a spoon in his mouth. He didn't know how to eat food. So we assumed he was about 3 to 4 weeks when we got him.
Wow. Okay. He is all kitten, that's for sure.
I know he plays all the time.
We had a bird feeder that was in the room where I record these expat chats, and had to get rid of the bird feeder because our cat would randomly attack the window.
Instinct.
Yeah. So it was a lot of fun, but not great for recording meetings.
Yeah.
So how long have you been doing Nomad Publishing?
So I started it in 2021. So it's been about 2.5 years.
Okay.
I have my books here. My books are always right next to me.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
So do you work with people mostly in Mexico or?
No. Moms most of them are from the United States or other English-speaking countries.
Uh-huh.
But they're located all over the world because a lot of them are world schooling. They're full-time families. They're road schooling. They're traveling most of the time.
Okay. So tell me about world schooling. Tell us a little more about that.
So world schooling, and everyone has a different definition. So this might not be the definition, that you're used to. This might not be the definition that's accepted by others, but the way I think of it as a former teacher, it's homeschooling, whereas the parents are in charge of the curriculum. But instead of sitting at home and, having the mom with the whiteboard and things like that, they're actually using travel as the curriculum.
Okay.
So I see moms, for example, there was a mom the other day, they were learning about the Titanic. So what she did was her children actually prepared meals. They prepared meals from the first class, the second class, and the third class passengers to see the difference between the food before they went to see a Titanic exhibit. It was a really well thought out unit, I guess you could say. But everything that you're doing with world schooling is through experience. So my daughter knows how to use Google Maps because when we go on a road trip, she's the one in charge of Google Maps.
Okay. Great. Yeah. So the types of books that they're writing, is it about their experiences on the road or different books?
Different books. This is my most recent book. Actually, Jessica, who's in the comments, she was on this book. So this book is Digital Nomad Moms. And this is about the moms who work online, who have been able to create this location-independent lifestyle. And it's one thing to do it when you're single and young, which I did, but it's a completely different thing to do it when you have kids. It's way different.
Yeah.
So they're writing about their journeys.
Okay. That's great. So how did you choose Mexico, and how did you choose Veracruz of the other places that you might? That's not the only place you've lived, right? There's other.
No, I started in Guadalajara, and then I moved to Mexico City because I was working in companies giving English classes. Okay. And then I came to Veracruz, then Cancun. Then I went to El Salvador and Nicaragua. I came back to Progreso, back to Veracruz. I love Veracruz. Then we went to Playa del Carmen to live, and then Chilem, and came back to Veracruz.
Okay.
So I keep coming back to Veracruz because when I was here, I was like, well, what if there's someplace better? What if, you
Yeah.
get kind of caught up in that. I don't want to be here like the rest of my life if the next town or the next country is so much better. But when I was traveling in other places, it was great to travel to, but it didn't really meet my expectations like Veracruz did.
Okay. Tell us more about Veracruz. What made that? Sorry about that. What made Veracruz stick among
Well,
all?
so I was working in Mexico City, and so giving classes in companies, I was making a ton of money. But my mornings, I actually had trained my body to know how to sleep on the metro and the bus and just wake up at my stop. Like I was in this routine of 5 a.m. I was headed to the bus stop, get to the bus stop, take it to the metro, get on the metro. It was a lot of traveling.
Yeah.
I was teaching in Mave, Western Union, different companies, international companies, but they were located in all different parts of the city. So I had a schedule from Monday to Thursday, and I decided I wanted to spend my weekends at the beach. And Veracruz just happened to be the closest beach from Mexico City.
Okay.
So I came here, and I just fell in love with it. It's a little, well, no, it's a little, it's really freaking old. It's a 500-year-old city. So it's very, very old. A lot of people think it looks like dirty and crummy, but it's just kind of off the beaten path.
Okay.
But what really attracted me is that the people are so nice.
Yeah.
They are so nice. The people here, I just don't know how to describe it. They're not used to having foreigners, so they're just naturally curious. If I go to the convenience store, people want to say like the dollar amount in English, and they're really proud, and you can see the pride. And I remember that pride from when I learned Spanish. So I don't know, people are just very open and curious, and we have great conversations.
That's great. So, and is that different than other cities that you've lived in?
Oh yeah. When we lived in Playa del Carmen, it was kind of like living in Miami. My brother lives in Miami, so I know. People kind of looked at you as a dollar sign.
Okay.
More like, I remember pushing my daughter in the stroller, and a man helped me get up on the curb. Super nice, right? And then he stuck out his hand for a tip. And I was like, I'm just a person walking with my daughter. But that kind of stuff happens all the time. People weren't nice to be nice. They were nice because they thought that they would get a tip or money from you.
And that was in Playa del Carmen?
Yeah.
And that's a tourist area, right? So
yeah. We love it to visit. We visit all the time. It's a great city to visit. Just living we didn't want to live amongst other expats in that way.
Tell us a little bit more about that if you're comfortable. Are you looking to live local as opposed to living as an expat, so you're avoiding those communities?
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with people that go and live in the expat bubble at all. It's a safety thing, and a lot of people that don't speak the language will seek out other foreigners. But in our situation, my husband's Mexican, so he feels completely left out in expat situations. He's like shy to speak English. He understands everything, but he's shy to speak it. And so that really wouldn't be fair to him. So we do try to have a balance. And we definitely live local because I speak Spanish. So why not take advantage of the cost of living?
Yeah, great. And, if you're in a tourist city, life is a lot different because back to your explanation about people asking for a tip for everything. Is the economy there, is it largely on tourism? So does that play into that, or was that different?
Yeah, the economy in Cancun and the Riviera Maya and Playa is actually most of the economy in Mexico is tourism from that area. That's the number one generator of money for Mexico.
Okay. And while we're on economics, you started your business in Mexico. right? Is it an American company in Mexico, or is it a Mexican company set up?
American company, registered, everything in Florida. The benefit of having my company while I live abroad is much easier to set up an American company as an American than for me to set up a company in Mexico. There's a lot of hoops to jump through. And Mexico, the economy in Mexico is very much underground. Most businesses are not set up through the legal system, so they don't pay taxes. So if you go and set something up through the legal system, they kill you on taxes. They just kill you.
Okay. Yeah. So how did you learn those ropes? Did you have someone help you, or did you have to figure that out on your own?
No, I figured it out on my own. When I was a teacher, I had my own company for teaching Spanish, and I primarily taught to homeschool districts in California. So I had to go through the government to set that up. And so when I started in my publishing, I already knew how to do all of that.
Okay.
So I kind of say when it all fell together to start my publishing company, it really fell together. It was very easy.
Yeah. Yeah. So I've talked to a few people, and we had an American-based company, and we worked around Europe. So it was similar. All of our taxes were paid in the U.S. and things like that. Do you anticipate? Do you see yourself going back to the States anytime soon
No.
just a visit?
The last time we went to visit, my daughter was about 1.5. She's 6.5 now. And it's so stressful. I don't know. There's just an environment there where you don't have enough time. You don't have enough hours in the day to do everything you want to do. So I remember like eating in the car, it just was a very rushed lifestyle. And here it's the opposite. Here, it's kind of like wake up, you have your late breakfast. I'm in kind of a sleepy beach town. Everything opens at 10 or 11 a.m. anyway. Mm-hmm. And that for me is way better for my kids.
Yeah.
It's just a better lifestyle.
So your daughter, so for you, it was reverse culture shock. But for your daughter,
I guess I never thought of it that way, but yeah.
Yeah. And reverse culture shock is something that we haven't really got into in this forum yet. Is that something that you want to talk about, or was that a big issue?
No, I'll talk about. I'm an open book, literally.
I'm sorry.
I'm an open book. I said.
Oh, okay. So your daughter's 1.5. Do you have other children?
Yeah, I have 2 daughters, 6.5 and 3 years old.
Okay. So and the last time, so the 6.5-year-old, her time coming back to the U.S. to visit relatives was when she was 1.5.
Yeah. She doesn't remember it.
And you haven't been back since?
Nope.
So for her, it would be an entirely different experience because she is Mexican born, and
they're very close. My kids are Mexican. They don't know that they're from the U.S. Like from cousins and friends and stuff in the neighborhood. Both of my kids are like, I want to go to the United States, and I'm like, you can, you know that, right? They don't understand. They think they're Mexican. Not a bad thing.
Yeah. That's it's interesting. So, do your U.S. relatives just come to you, or?
My brother does. The thing with COVID really stunted our travel. Yeah. Because my youngest daughter was born 6 weeks before the lockdowns. Mm-hmm. So I was kind of just waking up from the labor experience, and then we were in lockdowns, and she didn't even have her birth certificate, nothing. So it really stunted us on the travel that we had planned, and we had to adapt, and that's fine. But, both of my kids, they're very well adjusted here. They have a lot of family here, and I only have my brother.
Okay.
My parents are deceased, so I only have my brother. He lives in Miami, so it's just really a quick flight, and he can work remotely too. So
Oh, nice, nice.
yeah,
Now, how when he comes to visit, does he speak Spanish, or how is it for him
he
to?
is learning. The first maybe like 6 times he came, I was like so frustrated because he would break out his phone and do the Google Translate thing and have a conversation.
Yeah.
And I had sent him like, this is my personal emergency Spanish sheet. Print it out, laminate it. This is all you need to get around. And he ignored it. And then actually the last 2 times he's come, he's made a really big effort and he's enjoyed his visits a lot more.
Good, good. Yeah, yeah. Of course, we encourage that. uh, so while we're on, kind of that topic, any what are some of the funnier moments as you were getting started that come to
Oh,
mind?
I have one about my brother. He's going to kill me for telling this, but So my brother, I had a salsa party, and that is where everybody had to make their salsa, and we would judge and see who made the best salsa. And obviously, it was at my house, so I didn't participate, but I would have won. And my brother came, and since he was an outsider and I was not, I wasn't putting up a salsa, he was a really good judge, a blind judge. But it was very hot, as it often is in Veracruz. So he spent the whole party going around telling people, estoy caliente, which doesn't mean I'm hot. That means I'm, in the mood for some loving, to all of my sister-in-laws. And we just laughed and let him do it for like 3 or 4 hours. And we finally figured out it's hace calor. And he's never made that mistake again. Oh my God, my sister-in-laws were just, their faces were like, yeah.
So yeah, so it when you first mentioned that, my first question was, are we talking about making salsa, or are we talking about a dance party?
Oh no, like food salsa. We're not dancers. American people cannot dance. We can't do it. Something, I don't know. We're just not born with the rhythm. So
Yeah, I'm with you on that. And any other, what about you? Is there any time where you got tripped up, whether it was language or customs, where?
not tripped up, but the most embarrassing story I have. I was at the beach because when I first moved here, I had like an intermediate level of Spanish, but I really wanted to be fluent. That was really my goal for moving to Veracruz because in Mexico City, I was speaking English all the time. I never had to speak in Spanish, ironically. So I would be at the beach a lot, and people naturally walk by and they try to sell you stuff, and I would like rope them into a Spanish conversation to practice. And one day I'm talking about Mexico, and I just love the food in Mexico doesn't have any preservatives. So like
Okay.
if you buy a bottle of I don't know, like salad dressing in the United States, it lasts 5 or 6 years. But if you do that here, you only have a couple months because there aren't all these preservatives. So I'm talking to people and I'm saying, yeah, I love the food in Mexico. There's no preservatives. But I'm using the Spanish word, which I thought was the right word, preservativos. That in Spanish means condoms. So funny looks. I'm saying like, yeah, I hate condoms. And I'm getting these weird looks. And I figured it out a couple weeks later when I went to the grocery store and like the bottle of tomato sauce said no conservadores. And I was like, oh my God, that's like everybody's staring at me. False cognate.
So, so that's our word for the day, false cognate.
Right? Oh my gosh.
Great. So how did you learn Spanish?
So I learned it on my own. When I was, studying to be a nurse and I was working at the hospital, I noticed that they never had anyone to translate Spanish. So again, I'm the type of person that I think, well, if I can learn Spanish, well, I'm going to be so much more valuable than the rest of the people who don't know Spanish. And so I did. I started to study it. I started to befriend people who spoke Spanish and practice. And I was terrible at the beginning. It was terrible.
And where were you when you started?
Well, I was in Pennsylvania and Delaware. And Delaware
Okay.
particularly has a lot of Spanish-speaking people. I don't know why, but I made friends at work. I made friends near my house at the pizza joint. And for the longest time, like I would go to the pizza place and just order pizza, and I wouldn't say anything. I was so scared to say something in Spanish. Until like one day, maybe after like 3 months, I don't know what happened, but most of the employees were in the back, like in a meeting, and there was just one employee, and it was a lot less intimidating. And I spoke Spanish, and the guy was like, "You speak Spanish? Like, I see you every day." And I didn't even eat the pizza. I just wanted to practice Spanish. And we became really great friends. And he was from El Salvador. I actually have seen him several times when I went to live in El Salvador. We became the best of friends, and he really, just through the immersion in the friendship, is where I really picked up a lot of Spanish.
Okay. So, and that's great tip. So if you really want to become ingrained in a culture, let your friends be your teachers, right?
Yeah. And I mean, it's a mutual thing because, him learning English, it was a balance, right? It's not just, I'll make friends with people so they can help you. There was a nice balance there.
Yeah, and that settling in period is so important. A lot of what we do, our coaches tend to become family friends with our learners because of that. Because especially we teach a lot of expats,
You
and
learn a lot about their personal lives.
oh yeah, because we teach what's really relevant to the learner. So if what you're needing is basics, getting to the market, getting transportation, or if it's even business, that we get a lot of particularly spouses that will ask, so help me navigate this situation with my kid, that sort of thing. And I'm noticing Kara McWest is clarifying that lots of Americans yes, we know that. I'm not one of them. My wife and I are actually taking dancing classes so that I can
I've often thought of that. I have often thought of that. It's so embarrassing here in Mexico when you can't dance.
Yeah, so I recommend it highly.
Jen, I think you brought up a good point. I mean, I don't know if you meant to, but when you were talking about a lot of spouses want to take language classes, the isolation when you move to another country and if you don't speak the language, I've seen a lot of expats. I've been abroad 13 years. I've seen a lot of expats come down, really not put effort into that part, not put effort into, making local friends or trying to speak Spanish, and they end up really miserable. A lot of them go back home. I mean, I don't think people prepare you for, you don't have your family, you don't have your friends, you don't have the corner store where you grew up going to, you don't have those daily interactions in your language, and that really affects, just your mood.
Yeah. So do you have some tips from Sara, if somebody who's watching is considering that move, or maybe is that person who hasn't really prepared or seen the need yet to study the language, what would you suggest for them?
I always suggest get a private teacher. A lot of people will balk at the cost of private classes, and they'll say, like Duolingo is free. Okay, it's free, but it's kind of the thing where you get what you pay for. You don't need to know 100% of the Spanish language. What you need to know is what's in your house, what you need at the grocery store, what you're going to order at a restaurant, and you're going to save money in the long run if you find a teacher who can tailor the classes to you, where you're speaking 80% of the time and you're getting that practice and like the pronunciation correction. You don't get that with Duolingo.
Right. It's the thing that I find from Duolingo's that's most helpful is recognizing words and kind of as a supplement. But to your point, nothing. You can't. If you want to speak, you have to speak. And so I know enough of 4 languages to be dangerous, but not enough to be very conversational. So it's through my work with refugees that I got into expats, the global mobility industry in general, and particularly with language, because I've been that student who has been in a foreign country and trying to draw off of what I've learned so far and just fumbling around. So
like pointing at things and like making gestures.
Yeah, and like saying the wrong thing. Like in Europe, I try to speak the local language when I can. And there have been times that I've said a sentence and knowing full well that I said words from 3 different languages in that sentence, and hoping that it made sense to the person I was.
It is what it is. You have to get over, I call it the hump. You have to get over the fear of being ridiculed. People who have learned a second language are not going to ridicule you ever, because they've been through it and they know the experience. I took a lot of flack from my partner's family. They were making fun of my accent for so long. And one day I just said, what's your problem? Do you feel better about yourself if you make fun of my accent? Do you speak English? Never made fun of my accent again. And I think it takes something for them to realize that. But the people are going to make fun of you. Just they're not the people that you really want to engage with anyway.
Unless you're related, then you kind of have to.
No, you really don't. Come on. The funny thing is that the people that made fun of me since then, they always ask me, do you give English classes? I think it's like a psychological thing. They want to learn English, but for some reason, they didn't express it in a great way.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah. Are there other mistakes that you see expats making when they make the move?
How much time do you have? No, I was in another
we can schedule a follow-up if we need to.
Well, because I have two expat groups, right? So I see the same questions over and over. Another mistake I would say is overpaying for everything. And there's 2 sides to the argument, right? One side is like, well, you should pay your babysitter 500 pesos a day because you can afford it. And 300 pesos is nothing. That's slave wages. But then the other side of the argument is, but you're throwing off the balance of the local economy. And when it comes to places like Playa Carmen, like Progreso, you see the results of that, Lake Chapala, where people don't want to work anymore for local Mexicans. They only want to work for expats because they're going to make twice as much money. And then the cost of everything goes up. So there's 2 arguments, and I understand both sides. But my philosophy is, if I wouldn't do it in my home country, I'm not going to do it here. So I wouldn't randomly overpay in the United States. I'm not going to do it in Mexico.
So is that the rule of thumb where? So I want to make sure I understood what you said. If I wouldn't overpay in my own country, I wouldn't overpay here.
Mm-hmm.
Did I understand?
That's in my personal opinion.
No, I'm just trying to clarify because it's a really great point, and I want to make sure that we. Let
me give you an example. Okay, so a lot of people here will say, well, if you go to a restaurant, you should tip. I went to a restaurant. It was 100 pesos or $5 for tacos, so I gave them $10 as a tip. But would you do that in the United States? No, that would be ridiculous to give a tip that was twice as much as the bill.
Yeah.
And we're talking on a daily basis. This adds up.
Are there any, cultural faux pas that a well-meaning American in Veracruz or other places that you lived?
A lot of people give me weird looks when I shake their hands. Mexicans are kissers and huggers.
Okay.
And sometimes, I don't want to be, you go to a family party and there's 200 people here in Mexico at the family party. I don't necessarily want to kiss 200 people.
Yeah.
And so like, I'll just like stick out my hand and they don't know what to do with that.
Yeah. So how do they perceive that? Does it feel like you're standoffish or?
Yeah. No, a lot of people they'll actually tell me, they'll say, you seem kind of like rude when I met you, but now I know you and you're so nice, but you have to understand, I'm often walking into a situation where I'm the only foreigner. I'm the only English speaker. Everyone else it's like walking, into a party in the United States with a new boyfriend. Everyone else has known each other their entire lives, and not me. So I don't really know. I don't know who's my type of person. I don't know who's like the crazy aunt that no one likes. I have to figure that out as I go.
Yeah. And what, perception is everything. 'Cause what you're saying reminds me of being in Italy, and they do the kiss on each cheek, and I perceive that as being way more intimate than giving a hug. And someone explained it to me as the opposite. He said, "Let me explain to you how we hug in Italy." And it's like, I know you Americans are going like this, and it was such an eye opener that it would have never occurred to me that was a perception if someone hadn't pulled me aside and explained that to me.
But that's the beauty of travel, right?
Yeah.
You find out all of how culture, and that's another thing with language. You really do need to understand the language to understand the culture and the words that people use. They're used completely differently. Yeah. That's a great example.
How people think. Learning different languages has helped me to understand that as I learn how sentences are structured, and particularly with colloquial speaking, to learn it's a great window into how people think and what their norms are. Yeah. But then just, chat, find somebody who's willing to talk to you and talk with them, listen to them, and learn a little bit about what they think is important. And that's very helpful too.
And that's kind of the easiest, but the hardest thing to do. It's easy in that anybody is going to want to tell you about themselves, right?
Yeah.
But it's hard to kind of get up the nerve. Hey, will you be my friend and talk to me in your language? It's kind of hard.
Yeah. But so do you find that part of being in a smaller community in Veracruz versus Mexico City or other metropolitan places, is that easier for you there?
I love Mexico City. I mean, I visit there all the time. The thing about Mexico City is I wasn't quite living there as I was more working there.
Okay.
I mean, from 5 a.m. to 10 p.m., I was out doing classes. I was never home. And that's just an exhausting, draining day. But what really, like the straw that broke the camel's back for me in Mexico is that, especially during the rainy season, I was always sick. I would get this really nasty cough every morning when it rained. And even my contacts, I had to buy a really special contact solution for highly polluted areas.
Okay.
I mean, like here, I wear my contacts way longer than I should, like 6 months, until they start to bother me. Then I take them out. But in Mexico City, it was like 2 weeks, and I would have to change contacts every 2 weeks. And that kind of made me think, okay, so this pollution obviously is doing something. It's got to be doing something to me too. I was single.
Was it pollution, or was it an allergy, or is the air quality bad where you are?
In Mexico City, the air quality is horrible.
Okay.
Horrible. It's all factories, and there's a smog that sits over the city during the week.
Okay.
Yeah. Here, Veracruz has a lot of nature. I forget the percentage, but most of the clean water that goes to Mexico City comes from Veracruz. It's all rivers, lakes. It's very, very natural. And so that just for me it's more of a lifestyle that I wanted. This was before kids, but even with kids, I would never live in Mexico City, ever. I just could not imagine. It's very similar to New York, but like 5 times bigger. Couldn't imagine that.
Yeah, and New York is one place where when people talk about U.S. culture, like when we were working in different countries, no matter what country we're in, if we were not in the capital, people always would, one of the first things they would say is, oh, we're not like they are in Paris, Amsterdam, whatever the capital was. Like, and I love people in all those places. And, and I lived in New York for a couple of years too. But definitely there's a different culture in New York. When you're on the subway in New York, you don't make eye contact.
Yeah.
However, you're always in a way overcrowded car, so you get more intimate with people than you normally would for people you know, much less a complete stranger, just because you're all packed together. So how does that kind of thing, what does that evoke for you in Mexico City?
When I first got to Mexico City, I was so polite because I was always on the metro, and I'm from Philadelphia. I've never really been on a train like that. So I would be like, permiso, like, excuse me, can I get off? It's my stop. I would miss my stop every day because nobody would move. And by the time I was like ready to leave, I'm like, muévete. Like, you have to push people out of the way or you will not get out the door. You really won't.
Yeah.
And I've been so pressed. I've had so many men pressed up against me. It's too much. It's too much. It wasn't a comfortable. You don't know if they're doing it on purpose or if they're just against you, right?
Yeah.
But it wasn't.
So if there wasn't the added layer of cross-cultural, I mean, in New York, it's how it is. And so I grew up in the Midwest, moved to New York, and my wife is from New York, so she was able to explain, this is how it is. In Mexico City, did you have anyone who could pull you aside and explain this is how it is moments like that?
I just figured it out. There was one bus route I had to take, and it was filled every day at 4:00. And I was that person who hung on to the bar, but was like outside the bus. I wasn't in the bus. I was on the first step, just hanging on.
Yeah.
Completely dangerous. But if I didn't do that, I wouldn't get on the bus. So once a couple people would get off, like us people on the steps could move onto the bus. You just figure it out. It's not, but in Mexico in general, there's not the whole personal space thing. Like when you go to the grocery store, people are right behind you. You're like, So it's just a closer in the car. Yeah. I mean, sometimes we go places in the car and we put way more people in our car that fit, but it's just what you do.
Now, I'm guessing in Philadelphia, you never saw yourself hanging off the back of a bus to get to where you're going.
Off the front. The first time I did it, I was so scared, but I was more scared of missing my class because I can't be late. I have to be on time. I just had to do it. I was so scared.
Yeah.
I don't know how. I mean,
how many times did it take you before you didn't really think about it? You just jumped on the bus and
probably a couple of weeks. I got used to it, and then I started like push people up, like, "Yo, come on, give me some room." It's just a confidence that builds inside of you because I would think that's completely rude. I would never do that in the U.S. I wouldn't be like, move. But it's not rude here. It's just if I don't say anything, no one's gonna move. But if I say something, they'll all try to accommodate me. Kind of like the squeaky wheel gets the grease.
Right. And you know that there's a saying, if the only way to do something is to do it, or the only way to learn something is to do it in some cases. And I don't believe that's the only way, but what is that thought? Because you were talking about, you had to take the bus, you had to get on time, and you had to just kind of do it. So what advice would you give to people? Is there is there kind of a rule of thumb about when you just do it and stop thinking about it versus maybe I should pause for a minute here?
Even though I had a really crazy experience in Mexico City because of all the different places I had to work, I don't regret it at all. I don't regret it at all because I did meet really amazing people there. And living there really showed me what I really didn't want. I was like, oh, the big city, because I'm from a small town outside of Philadelphia. So big city, I've never lived in a big city. And that's how I figured out, well, I don't really want to live in a big city. I'd rather be at the beach.
Yeah.
So I think for me, always say yes. Why would you say no? Just do it. And if you don't like it, you can go right back to your old life. They'll be waiting for you.
Say that again.
I said, always say yes. If you do it and you don't like it, you can go right back to your old life. Your old life is going to be waiting for you.
Great advice. Always say yes. That is that's a good mindset to have. And while we're saying yes, thank you for those who said yes to letting us know where you're from, Jessica and Kara and Omar. If anyone else has questions or just wants to say hi, we welcome that. Thank you for coming. Thank you for joining with us. I had another question and it left my mind for a second. You mentioned in another conversation we had that you're experiencing the keto diet in the Mexican culture and cuisine. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Oh my God. Keto in Mexico is so much harder than keto in the United States. I'm so jealous. I'm trying to get my brother to smuggle me down 0 carb tortillas because they don't sell any of the packaged stuff here. And when you tell people about the keto, it's not a thing in Mexico.
Okay.
So it's very hard for us. We're on day 26. Me and my husband, we're on day 26. My husband's disabled, so when he gains a little weight, we have to do something about it because his one leg is disabled from polio.
Okay.
So if he overweight, it could affect his ability to walk. So we get really serious and drop that weight for him real quick. But it's very hard to be with the family because everything is Coca-Cola, tortillas, rice. It's all sugar. Actually, Mexico is the most obese country in the world, and it has the highest rate of diabetes, more than the U.S.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so we prepare, like we bring our own food to go to people's houses. But here, culturally, food is, to be able to give someone who visits your house food is such a privilege to people because for a lot of people right now, 30 years ago, they were dirt poor. So when you go to their house and they can give you food, they're proud of that.
Oh, yeah.
And when you turn it down because you're like, well, I'm not eating that right now, it's very hard to not feel bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you usually in situations where you can give people that a heads up or do you have to kind of in the moment explain that?
We have my husband's a huge family. And for example, my sister-in-law just came back from the US after 20 years. So she just came back on Monday last week. And there was a couple of family celebrations. It's just, we just take it like situation by situation because some people are really like, yeah, okay, totally support that here. Just have the meat, don't take the rice. And other people, their level of education isn't up to, he has some family members that can't read. So they didn't go to school. They didn't go to elementary school. They don't really understand carbs versus fats versus proteins.
Right.
We're talking about. So there's an added layer there. And, we're both people pleasers, but we just have to do it. It hurts. But I think in a couple of months, when they see my husband all skinny, they're going to be like, oh, yeah, I get it now.
Okay. So it'll be interesting to see if that influences the family at all.
Oh, 100%. Half of them. That's the thing. Like, remember I said where people like made fun of my accent, but then they asked me about English classes. Well, they like try to give you tortillas, but then they're like, "Oh, can you tell me more about this?" It was kind of funny.
Really?
It is what it is. This is the economy here is very much based on corn, and it's a developing country, so a lot of the food is cheap and it's processed.
Yeah. So do most people buy meals and assemble them pre-made from the market, or is there a lot of cooking from scratch?
Oh, it's all cooking from scratch. So I love this part of Mexico. So we have a grocery, like a produce store, half a block from here. So I like to go daily because I like everything fresh. So I go and get like all my fruits and vegetables for the day. And there's a tortilla place. We're not going there anymore. There's a carniceria, the butcher shop. So we'll go like 2 times a week and get fresh meat. There's a couple benefits to that because right now the inflation is really high here too. So if you go to these different stores, the prices haven't really gone up in these stores, but they have gone up in the supermarkets.
Okay. So you have the option to shop supermarket that style like we're familiar with in the US, or shopping with your local.
Yeah, we have Walmart. There's Sam's Club a couple blocks away. It's not the same in the US. Like the clothes at Walmart are different brands than the US. They're not as well made. And in Sam's Club, you don't have all the coupons. Coupons don't exist in Mexico. So sad. I would love to be one of those crazy coupon ladies, but you don't have this like huge competition.
Okay. Okay.
But most people will get.
So, and Veracruz cuisine. There's for people in the U.S., Mexican food evokes something. For some people, it evokes Taco Bell or ranchero sauce.
I love Taco Bell. It's not Mexican, but I love Taco Bell. Bad habit.
I know at least one family that they actually live in China, and they're from the Central Texas area. And when they come home, the first stop they make before they get to any other stop from the airport is Taco Bell.
In Guatemala, Costa Rica, El Salvador, the line for Taco Bell is out the door.
Really? That surprises me.
Only Mexico. Yes. My brother brings me, he smuggles me in tacos when he comes.
So I know there's Oaxacan cuisine, Veracruz cuisine. Tell us about the different regions in Mexico.
Okay, so Veracruz has the best food in the country. And I say that because I've traveled to all the places in the country. And I'm not biased. The best food is here. I'm sorry, everybody gets mad when I say that. Veracruz kind of has a mix of Mexico City, like pulls from everywhere. But a unique thing about Veracruz is that it has a lot of Caribbean roots. There's a lot of African and Caribbean roots here that doesn't exist in the rest of the country.
Okay. So that affects the spices?
Oh, yeah. The food here is amazing. The salsa is nice and spicy. And if you go somewhere out, like other parts of the country, when we go to Playa del Carmen, Cancun, we go on the Riviera Maya, we eat like Americans. We eat hamburgers and pizza because the local food isn't good. It's just lacking flavor.
Yeah. Okay.
So we end up eating like, tourists. Mexico City is great food too. There's not too much difference between Mexico City and Veracruz. Veracruz, the typical food is like empanadas, which is taco dough that you put cheese, chicken, or beef inside of it and fry it. There's something called a picada, which is a lot of tortilla, the tortilla dough, and on top you put spicy salsa, onions, and crumbled up cheese. So a lot of these, they're very cheap and they're very yummy. It's like, it's like comfort food.
So I haven't mentioned seafood being.
Oh yeah, sorry. I don't eat seafood,
No.
so I never think of it. But yeah, there's seafood everywhere. It's very cheap.
Yeah. So, I'm getting hungry just thinking about it. So we are kind of getting close to the top of the hour, so I want to respect everyone's time. If you do have any last minute questions for Sara, please ask them now. Really enjoyed speaking with you. Love getting to know you and learning about your time in Mexico, as well as your work with helping other moms and getting published as they navigate their journeys. Anything that you would like to add to any of those points?
No, I would just say if you have a question, leave it in the comments, and I'll go back through the event later on and try to answer that. And it was a pleasure speaking with you. I hope we can do it again and talk about El Salvador.
Oh, I'd love that.
Yeah.
So we'll go ahead and sign off. Thanks again, everyone. Thank you for joining us at Expat Chat. If you're an expat and would like to be on Expat Chat, please let us know. We'll be happy to tell you more about the program and would love to hear your stories. And thank you again, Sara. Thank you for all you do. All the best for Nomad Publishing and your authors.
Thank you so much. Pleasure to speak with you. It went by very quick.